Good evening and welcome to the City Council study session for tonight, Tuesday, March 11th in Sammamish. Welcome, and if we could have the clerk call us to order.
Mayor Karen Howe.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Amy Lamb.
Here.
Councilmember Kaylee Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Pamela Stewart.
Here.
Councilmember Kent Treen.
Present.
Councilmember Sid Gupta.
Here.
Councilmember Roshino Farrell.
Here.
Thank you. And for the Pledge of Allegiance, if Councilmember O'Farrell could do that for us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And land acknowledgement with Councilmember Clark.
Alrighty, we acknowledge that we are on the indigenous land of Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Snoqualmie Indian tribe. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived here and continue to live here since time immemorial.
Thank you. And if now we could get a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded rapidly. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So our first topic then for this evening is going to be a discussion, the Art Strategic Plan. So now we have Anjali, Emily, Janie, Leslie, and Sarah.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, Mr. City Manager. For the record, I'm Anjali Maya, Director of Parks and Recreation. We are here this evening to provide an update on our work on Sammamish's first Art Strategic Plan. I'm joined by Janie Walzer, Management Analyst for our department, Emily Scott, Recreation and Cultural Services Manager and Staff Liaison to the Arts Commission, and Leslie Bain, Principal from Framework. The next slide. The purpose of this presentation is to confirm the key components of this plan, including the action statement and goals. The intent of this plan is to ensure that Sammamish's art and culture initiatives align with the city's broader community vision, reflect the needs and aspirations of our residents, and establish a clear framework for future arts investments and partnerships. Next slide. Tonight's presentation will cover Arts in Sammamish Today, a brief overview of our existing arts programs, the action statement and goals of the Arts Strategic Plan, city policies and public engagement, and then we'll open it up for a discussion with council, and finally discuss the next steps for the project. Before I turn it over to Leslie for the presentation, we do want to acknowledge the role of the Arts Commission. They have been involved every step of the way. Early on, they helped with refining the scope and participated in the consultant selection process. They worked alongside the consultant for many of our community tabling events at the Silver Jubilee and Farmers Market and the Healthy Living Fair at Central Washington. They also participated in the development of the survey. And then here are a list of the various touch points with the Arts Commission through the process. Leslie.
Great. Thank you. It's really good to be here with you and talk about our art plan work. Just a couple of things. We're talking about what the city's doing and can do. We're looking at ways that we can align the arts investments and activities with your city policies. And secondly, to organize the Arts Commission so that they are functioning more efficiently. Those are our two big overarching goals. Up here you can see 5 different ways that cities can and do participate in the arts, and you're doing all of them. One is as a funder, so the Arts Commission gives out some grants, community nonprofit cultural grants. You serve as an owner. You have 27 lovely pieces of art. There are also projects that the city does as an owner, an instigator. You're a partner. You partner with the organizations that are nearby and around the town, classes for art, music, and performances. The information hub is an important role that cities play because if you do things, people need to know about them. Your Parks and Rec has social media and newsletters. The Arts Commission has an artist spotlight program where they find an artist and help the community know what they're up to. And you act as a host for community events. Things happen in the Commons, and you've got hosting some lovely art by the youth in your community out there. So these are different functions, and I think it's helpful to think about that as different functions to try and organize what you want to be doing more of. So we don't want to just make stuff up. We want to look at what you have said about yourselves, what your visions are for the future, what Sammamish wants to be. We look carefully at your comprehensive plan vision. We look at the vision of the prose plan. We look at the mission of the Arts Commission, and we listen to what people said through public engagement. And through that, we funnel that into an action plan. I would say one of the things that was really interesting in looking at that array of input is that there is some real consistency to it. You know, when you're thinking about arts and culture and people say, well, I want the arts to say Sammamish, it's really important to ask yourself the question, what that means, what says Sammamish? And people talked a lot about their love for nature. They talked about their interest in the different cultures that are in your community. They said that we love our family orientation. So those are some things that were really came across loud and clear across all of those things. So in looking to the kind of art and what it can help support, those things really become important. So looking at your comprehensive plan talks about beautiful natural surroundings and your vibrant park system. I think it's interesting when you talk about lively mixed-use centers that arts and cultures play a real important role in that other city efforts don't. Connected neighborhoods, you know, how can we look at your trails as something that can be made more exciting, more visible? The active cultural scene, obviously, that has a lot to do with arts and culture. In the prose vision, connecting people to nature, play, and culture, it's all right there. The Arts Commission has an interesting one that talks about a sense of place and civic identity. So we might think about, you know, where are you now in Sammamish or not? You know, what is that civic identity? And the public engagement, again, multicultural, intergenerational, accessible, visible, again, talking about nature. And one interesting thing that came out of that was the city's grown, there are a lot of new people here. How can they get together and share being people that live in the same community? What are those opportunities? And how can arts and culture help to bring those opportunities to people? Some of the other things they said, they liked functional art. I think they don't want what sometimes people call plop art. They wanted diversity in their art. An artist friend of mine talks about public art as being like a library where there's something for everybody. The natural beauty representing that, not overwhelming the beauty or distracting from it, but being in harmony with it. People really liked the arts events, the music, the performing arts. Obviously, the farmers market is a cultural event that people love. It's a chance, you know, like saying before, for people to get together with their neighbors and share. Public art location. So where should it go? What should it be? Where should it go? Again, diversity is I think important. You've got a cluster of art here in the Commons and City Hall, which is as it should be. But people also want to get art out into the neighborhoods and into the parks. 228th is something that, for better or worse, people spend, you know, time driving up and down. What can be done to make that feel more of what you want to be, more beautiful, more interesting, to represent the people that live here? So those are some of the things. There's a map up there that we don't have to get into detail, but we did think about those. So yeah, let's go to the framework plan, the action plan. So this, again, filters out of what we heard. People want to see equity and accessibility for everybody. It's not just for the capital A art people. Celebrates and highlights the community's cherished natural surroundings. Adds vibrancy to the city's mixed-use centers, to your trails. Strengthens the local economy by offering cultural opportunities and supporting local artists. You know, the arts and culture really do have an economic aspect to them. It's not something that we're touching on too deeply in your plan, but helping your artists make a living, helping your businesses have things that attract people, you know, those are related. And, you know, the arts is an investment in things that are hopefully will pay off if you do it well. Okay. So in terms of the goals, they kind of fell out into 3 topics. So one is public art. Sometimes people think that art is just public art, but it's really much broader than that. But public art is part of the equation, and we're looking for things that actually have impact, that people can see them, that people like them, that they feel like they represent your city. And functional, they like functional. Events, that covers performing arts. It covers a lot of cultural things that people said that they wanted. You've got a great place out here. I think the Commons works fantastic if the weather's good. There are fewer places where people can gather, throughout the year. The lodge at Beaver Lake is gorgeous. So there are places, the Central Washington facility. So there are some, and hopefully a town center is on the horizon. So keeping that in our thoughts as we're looking toward the future. Capacity building is a really interesting one. For a city your size, you have fewer than you might expect cultural organizations, arts organizations. When you look at the cities that were funded through For Culture, it's an interesting thing to look at because the organizations that applied, many of them got funding. So I think one of the things that we would like to see for Sammamish in the Arts is to find your artists, to connect them, and support them in being strong organizations. Okay. So what does high impact public art mean? We looked at what people wanted in those. They liked things that they were functional. You can put things in trails that are great. There's mile markers, there's seating, there's entryways that can be really enticing. High activity locations like Sammamish Commons. This is a place where you've got some art, but maybe there's something that could be up at 228 that let you know that just down a ways there's a wonderful set of civic facilities. Opportunities for artists across skill levels. The arts is not just for people who have spent a lot of their life learning how to be artists. We love them, we honor them, but everyone's creative. And to bring out the creative spirit here, especially you've got a lot of kids. I bet there's a lot of people doing really interesting stuff in their garages. How can we smoke them out? How can we entice them to get together to inspire each other and inspire all the folks that live here? So lastly, honoring Sammamish's heritage, history, diversity, the indigenous cultures, as we heard in the land acknowledgement. It's really important to have the variety of things that really are about you. What is Sammamish for Sammamish? Okay. The events, there are a lot of events. I think one of the things that we find is really helpful in events is some predictability. So for instance, if everybody knows there's something going on in the Commons on Friday night, they don't have to look at their calendar, for next month. There's a lot of opportunities for people to partner with. You are a contracting city. There are organizations that are more than happy to come and play or deliver classes, workshops, et cetera. And using the city to help get word out about those communications is a really, really important thing. It's gotten harder to get the message out because we've got kind of a fractured system. I don't know who's on Facebook and who's on Instagram and Blue Sky, whatever. So getting word out is something that I think we really try to pay a lot of attention to, so that people's networks expand out into the community. Okay. So we talked a little bit about capacity building. The city can act as a host to maybe bring people together, bring your artists together. We've helped compile a list of them. We scoured artist rosters that are around the region, the people that have been hired by the chamber to come to this farmer's market. They're out there, and there's more that we don't know. One of the people in our focus groups ended up at a birthday party with me, like, oh. And she was talking about some neighbors that were musicians that certainly aren't on anybody's list, but she knows. So getting those networks to find their networks. I'm sure you have lots of creative people that if we could harness them, it would be really exciting. Yeah, another word about the capacity building is that some cities have some very robust nonprofit arts-related organizations that are great partners for the city. Issaquah is one. There's a few of them, but that can be really helpful for the city to not have to do the stuff, but partner with an arts organization. Okay. So do we want to, just because I don't want to do a monologue, one of the things that we thought would be good, because this is a workshop, is to talk to you about the action statement. We did a lot of wordsmithing on this with various folks, staff, and Arts Commission, but we want to make sure with you all that we are headed in the right direction and that we are really capturing the visions that you have put out in your various documents and funneled that into an action statement that really supports the kind of work you want to see done in the city.
I'm sorry, are you done?
No, we're just at a pause point with the question up there. Sorry if that wasn't
Okay,
clear.
it wasn't clear
Yeah,
that you were looking for feedback at this point?
If you have some feedback, we would love it. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Council, does anybody have feedback at this point? Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, just one, which is I know there's a fairly, well, in my sphere, to quantify the data collection, there are a lot of people who work with the youth in the community who would love to see more opportunities for showcasing not just youth art, but youth performances. And so I just want to make sure that as we sort of write any sort of action statements, that we see if there aren't ways to do more of that to give our incredibly talented and amazing kids those opportunities to perform more. Because I think the performing arts are a challenge. We don't have a performing arts center. A lot of the non-school related activities are getting tougher to schedule because the theaters that we have at our local schools are often booked. So I just throw that out there. Thanks.
Councilmember Gupta?
Yeah, thank you. If one of the points of feedback that the community gave, I think, was highlighting Native artists or making sure that Native artists play a role. So I wonder if that needs to be highlighted in this statement, or if that is, if that's what that first bullet point is kind of driving towards. I just want to make sure that that feedback was not lost.
And Councilmember Lamb, or excuse me, Deputy Mayor Lamb.
Thank you. Has this gone to the the Arts Commission already, or is that coming?
Yeah, we've been working with the Arts Commission all along. I think we've been to 5 meetings with them, so they've really helped us craft this. We've really relied on them.
So this is including what their feedback?
Very much so.
Okay. On the action statement, my only thing is that the second and the third bullets are for specifically public art. And is there perhaps making that into one statement? And then that would give you room for another point. Could we have something on like collaboration? I guess the way I see art is like right now, it's like every statement is what we're offering, which I think is great because that would add to the vibrancy of the arts community. But I also think it's like between people too. And it's like we offer the venue, but a way to foster like more collaboration between the community members, among community members, between artists. So I guess I'm just looking for some bullet point on being collaborative or in fostering collaboration.
Yeah, no, we appreciate all that input. I think, it's all in there. It's how we distill it here, and we'll take all those into account.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
Council, other comments? I am kind of struggling with the first part, I guess, the purposeful action to leverage arts and culture. Okay. It doesn't really set us apart or make us thematically unusual, different, distinctive. So I see nothing distinctive here. And I think I'm kind of searching for that component. And I think Deputy Mayor Lamb kind of hit on an interesting piece when she was just talking about collaboration. And I'm thinking about support as being something that could be distinctive, because an attribute that we could offer that would be, I think, powerful is the ability to add support for local artists maybe, but youth artists perhaps, and youth, arts organizations or something along those lines, in terms of the way that we support and amplify their efforts. I think there could be something there. I'm not exactly sure what yet. The other piece that's missing for me is that I am looking for the transactional component, in that I look and see how wonderful and how seductive those very large trolls have been. I would like a troll, please. Or I would like the next troll, okay?
I have a piece of information on that. The troll that's by the Nordic Heritage Museum is there for a limited time.
So I really like that troll in Sammamish. I'd like a wooden one instead of the other kind that we have. I'm looking for coalescence, places that we just can, thematically we can coalesce around a little bit. So that's kind of where I think I'm headed with it. Even that support component, because I've brought this up before, it's kind of a running theme for me, is like, we have these empty storefronts. I'd like to see it filled with art. Why not use that space to highlight and showcase different people's efforts? I realize it's a coordination mess, but I still think it's an opportunity for frankly the business community to get behind as well. So that's a different kind of collaboration, but I see that as a positive thing. And I have a question for you too, but I think I'll save that for later. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay. We have more questions, great. Okay, so Councilmember O'Farrell.
It's more like a little piece of input, and it may be off topic when you're asking for feedback on the action statement. But when I think of art, and especially like public art and art in the strictest sense of the word, I think some of the art that we have around the city, it's located in places that we cannot get to. It's in roundabouts and it's in different places, and we don't really understand what the art is, why it was there, what it's made of. There's no kind of interpretation off on the sidewalk, off on the wall next to it, where a pedestrian could read it, because we're certainly not climbing, or you shouldn't climb over into the roundabout to observe the art closer. So I kind of see that, and so sometimes the art that we have around the city, it puzzles me. And then the other thing that I think of, kind of moving forward, is that when you drive into our city from various locations, I feel like the entrance to our city is the optimum spot for art to kind of like depict, this is where you're coming to. This is what our town, our city is like, and here's kind of like a representation of what that is. And and I think we've opportunity there at, at Providence Point, at the top of Sahali, at different places along the way where we could make the entrance into our little city a little bit more appealing, and where we could, kind of put our little brand on it as opposed to just our sign that says "Welcome to Sammamish," which is very nice, but I think maybe it's been there a while and we could kind of do better. So that's kind of what I think of when I think of public art like that. I think of its accessibility to the public as we're driving by, and maybe that there's some form of interpretation that we could get to without putting ourselves in danger. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Clark.
Not a question. I just know a while back we had the 100,000 emails about the creative district. If that is something eventually that, I don't know, I can't remember what it takes. Like, yeah, you get money, but I think you have to like do something, apply to it, do something. I'm not going to explain it. You already know.
Do you want me to speak to that, or
I mean, because
want to make sure it's on the list?
you get like something.
It's you don't do it for
Is
the
it
money.
a good idea? Do we get it for the sign?
I think that it's got a very, very thoughtful process. And if you Google it, they've got all the stuff that you need to do to get to be a creative district. And honestly, I think it would be a wonderful process for you to go through. But I mean, take a look at it. I don't think you are a creative district yet. But one of the things that's really beautiful about it is it makes people come together and think about, just like discussions like this, how to be a creative district. And even if you don't do it, I think it's got some really nice material there about some questions that you might want to ask yourself. I think one of the things that I'm hearing is arts for Sammamish, by Sammamish, about Sammamish. And I think, we live in a world that has become very homogenized. And I think there's a real yearning for things that really are about you and your place. And that's what we would like to promote in the arts. So I think all of the things that you've said are really great. It's wonderful to hear your thoughts and priorities about things, because we can roll that in. And so it's not just about the statement, but it's really about the direction and just the mind frame of what the arts and culture mean for your city. So really appreciate the discussion.
Councilmember Treen.
Yeah, so I'll start with the first bullet point. I agree. Ensuring equity and accessibility for all residents of Sammamish. Good, nice start, especially on our first art strategic plan that pretty much says that we want to be respectful and supportive and make it a place that's safe for all residents of Sammamish when expressing their creativity, which I think that's what you're trying to say here. I also like the second bullet point where we celebrate and highlight the natural surrounding that we live in, because that's so important to just mental health for a lot of us residents here. So I think you nailed that one really nicely, and it encompasses a lot. The second one I'm not 100% sure on. There might be some definitions that need to be defined here because of like what is a mixed-use center and how many of them and where are they, and your trail connections, where are those and how does that work? And since we're just now kind of embarking on this connectivity throughout the city and on a multimodal level, the bigger picture here. So bullet number 3 has a lot of questions for me as to what does that really mean, and then how does that interact or interplay with the arts. And then the last statement where you say strengthen the local economy, I really like this last statement because I think it in some ways addressed what one of the concerns of Mayor Howe is about supporting the local artists. And so it's written right in there. So if you're going to support the local artists, I'm all for that. And then I understand how, thinking about in the old, maybe pre-COVID, when I don't know how big it is now, but the Bellevue Art Fair was like everybody went there every year to pick up art. And if they didn't buy art, they at least went to go look. So not that we're going to be big like the Bellevue Art Fair, but in that kind of same vein, how are you supporting the local artists by highlighting them, supporting them in an economic way so that they could actually do their art and be able to sell it and be able to make a living doing it. And so I think I like your last bullet point there. Maybe not the easiest thing to do, and the implementation of the actual action statement has some complexities to it but I think the idea behind it and the vision behind it is really solid. So thank you. So does it reflect existing city vision? I think the answer to that is yes.
Thanks. Should we head on? Okay. Okay, does anybody want to add anything about the specific goals so far, or maybe we'll just kind of keep moving a little bit? Okay. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
Was that your last slide, the one before? Okay.
Yeah. If council has no more questions, we can, yeah, go ahead.
I have another question. I was curious, would you consider repurposing art that already exists or potentially selling art that doesn't fit into the strategic plan?
Yeah, let me speak a little bit about the organizing the work. Because part of what we're doing is we're providing a toolkit. The toolkit will not be, we're working with the Arts Commission on that. You guys don't need to officially approve it because we want to make sure it's kind of a living document. But we've got best practices in there. And some of the best practices in owning art means that there's decommissioning. And I'm not sure exactly what you meant by repurposing, but
Decommissioning.
Okay. Decommissioning does have standard best practices that, honor the artist, assuming that they're still around, because it can be touchy. And when we're very excited to have a set of criteria. So when you're trying to decide, so the commission will have a work plan. And at that work plan, at the meeting where they put that work plan together, they will be looking at criteria for how they choose their projects. So the idea is to have a diversity of projects that work within the budget, especially with your biennial scheduling and budgeting. And those criteria are really helpful. They're helpful to say yes, and they're helpful to say no. So if there are pieces of art that people feel are inappropriate or could be improved by a different piece of art, there will be a process that is, following best practices. It can be sort of painful to have to go through a decommissioning process. So, whether you want to do that or not, I think is a decision. But that's part of the toolkit.
Okay, thank you.
If there's a piece you have in mind, let us know. Off topic.
All right, so here is just a recap of the timeline. We've spent the summer and fall understanding the existing conditions, gathering data, completing that public engagement process and the community survey. We are currently in the plan development phase, and next framework will provide the city with a full draft of the plan. Next slide. So in April, we will take that full draft to the Arts Commission for their review, and then in early May, we will bring a full draft of the plan to council, and we will incorporate any comments and changes to the plan, and then have a final plan that we take back to the Arts Commission, and if all looks good, they will recommend it to City Council for adoption, and we'll bring that to you in June. And that brings us to the end of that presentation.
Councilmember Lamb, excuse me, Deputy Mayor Lamb, so sorry.
So you were talking about decommissioning art. Along those same lines, like when I look at the goals for public art, you have a lot of numbers next to them, and you could go further and develop some of those, I guess, their strategies a little bit more. are we going to be able to see that? Because like when you talk about funding, develop a plan to incorporate functional art into future capital facilities plans, like it could be a percentage, of dollars that would be set aside for art. Like, is that going to be part of what's coming in the future? Are those plans going to be developed, how do you choose art? Like, I think you alluded to that. Who decides, who's the ultimate decision maker on what gets purchased? And how much money do you set aside? I think that we went through that with the DEI sculpture where, we didn't really set enough money aside and we couldn't attract the best artists because we only had a limited amount of money. So do we say, we're just going to save up until we have X amount of dollars to purchase something that is truly unique and will be worthwhile to buy?
I think there were a lot of questions in that question. The criteria are super important, and the annual work planning is really important. Because you start and you say, here's what we've got for our budget. Here we've got 12 meetings together, how many, task force, et cetera. What can we reasonably accomplish in that budget, and what are our priorities? We've been talking about a distribution of budget. How much do you want to give to grants? How much do you want to give to public art? And there's no hard and fast rule there, and I think that basically you want enough money to do something that doesn't just nibble around the edges. And I think there hasn't been a large project to be done. They're smaller projects, and those are good projects. You've been getting a lot of bang for your buck. The fairy houses are things that the community members make, and people love them. But if you're going to be doing a major commission, I think, you might need some help with somebody to help you do that. Because it's an undertaking that is a little bit complicated for people who haven't done a lot of arts management. So I think that you would be wise to have some help in that for a major project. They can help you with budgeting. They can help you. There will be in the toolkit an artist selection process. There's no one way to do that. If you're doing a major project, you may want to have the selection process bring 3 artists in, pay them an honorarium, and have the community really be part of that selection process. There was one recently in Renton where they painted the water tower, and they had 3 local artists come up with some submissions, and there was a big vote and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, everything that you do, you want to engage community, you want a breadth of things that you're doing. So when you're looking at the 2-year, which we're doing 2 years because you're biennial, if you say we're going to do 2 years out a big project, we're going to save some resources for that and really do something that's big and significant. Maybe it's your entry piece, I don't know. But meanwhile, you want to have some smaller things, some visible things that are going on at the same time. So I think the budget allocation is both broad and deep, that you look for something that is a significant, maybe couple of year event program, and you have some things that are ongoing, like you've got your utility wraps, you've got the fairy houses, you've got the artist spotlight. So going broad and deep. But there's a lot that could be done. There's more that I think people would like to do than the resources you have now. But I think if we can get the Arts Commission organized with the process and get some successes out there, that it could attract some more funding from outside of the city, not just within the city.
I guess what I'm was looking for is just, will there be more specifics for each of these items, like prioritize sculptures, and how are you going to prioritize them? We're going to develop a plan, how are we going to develop that plan? What will that plan include? I guess I just see a lot of questions for every single thing that I'm reading.
Yep, there are specifics. We're not going to tell the Arts Commission exactly what to do this project, that project, that project. We've set out a bunch of opportunities, but the enthusiasm has to be there to carry them out. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of options that they can pick from, but we do have a series of things from what we've heard that we think would be really good opportunities for the Arts Commission to pursue.
Okay. The one thing that I've been thinking about is that a lot of cities around us, all the cities around us, have big sort of festivals during the summer, and we don't have anything. Did the Arts Commission talk about creating something? Like, it could be anything.
Yes, I mean, one of the opportunities we see is that there is a signature thing that you do.
Yeah.
You have had those in the past. They're a lot of work. What was that called?
The Sammamish Days, around the
Sammamish
city's
Days.
birthday in August. Yeah.
Those take a lot of effort. A lot of times that's community leadership, and I think that's what it was when you had that. But there's no infrastructure in place. If you look at the Bellevue Arts Fair, for instance, there is a real infrastructure of people that have been doing that since, I think, the 60s.
Right. I guess I was thinking something more smaller scale that could eventually become a lot larger. I was just kind of brainstorming. I was like, oh, we could have like a chalk art festival and invite like artists that could do those like those 3D art, those 3D chalk things in the sidewalk. And those artists aren't very expensive to hire. So I was just thinking smaller scale, which eventually could be a lot bigger once we have the infrastructure and once we have a more center of town, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it's good to walk your way into bigger things. One of the things that we heard that I think is really intriguing is that there are a lot of people that know about tech, and that there's a really interesting overlap between art and technology. But I don't see any community in the region saying, we're going to run with that. Actually, at the Norwegian Heritage Museum right now, there's a really beautiful light sculpture just as you walk in the door. So if you go visit the Troll, take a look. But tech and art can be sort of overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. It can be quite beautiful. There's some wonderful examples of entryways into cities that use some beautiful lighting things, and you can do great things. So there are a lot of things that I think you could do that would be about you. I think you need to develop some of your community leadership and support them in ways that they can do some of that heavy lifting so that the city can be the supporter rather than the instigator. Mm-hmm. But I think that's where we really talk about doing that, helping support and grow your artistic community, having them meet each other and inspire each other.
Yeah, so I was just looking like North Bend. It's a city of like 8,000 people, and somebody in the comments wrote about the North Bend art and industry, which I looked up. I didn't know that existed, but like what a great place for artists to gather, and they offer classes, and we don't have anything like that. And North Bend is like only 8,000 people, and even Issaquah, they're 40,000 people. They have a glass blowing place. They just started a new place that offers ceramics and pottery, and it would be great to. So I'm excited for this. I know that we're not there yet, and there's, obviously we're not there yet, but I just think that we have such an opportunity to support our artists here and to develop something a lot bigger than what we currently have.
Yeah, we agree, and I think putting some of those opportunities out there for discussion and inspiration of getting yourself organized so that the efforts that you do really produce good results. I think those are the first steps in walking into a more robust and uniquely Sammamish set of arts and cultural efforts.
Thank you.
Yeah. Councilmember Gupta.
Yeah, thank you. As far as timeline, I saw it mentioned a plan to incorporate functional art into future capital facilities. Is that specific plan going to be part of the final draft of the art strategic plan, or is that something that comes afterwards and is informed by the strategic plan?
That's a recommendation. I think the cities do certain things because that's what they do, and a lot of times when you sort of inspire people with the idea of incorporating art into what you do, that it can be done in a way that is not necessarily more expensive. We've been working with Oak Harbor, and there's a woman in the Public Works Department that got very excited about using art to show that stuff goes down the drain, right? So the idea of having a professional artist do the one in the sort of public area, and then having neighborhoods tap into their kids to do those. So, you know, these things don't have to break the bank, but I think they get the idea out in the community that you can incorporate art into your neighborhoods and your life, and it doesn't have to be really expensive, but it can make a big impact and bring people together.
Thank you. So that would be, so that's a recommendation. So that would presumably be a policy piece that we would put into place after the final art strategic plan.
That's correct.
Okay, great, thank you. I also saw, I just wanted to mention, it mentioned the Hive in Spokane as a partnership opportunity. I got the chance to see that a couple of years ago. That is amazing. Anything we can do. I think they're in partnership with the library, like the library owns the building. What a cool space. If we could do anything, even a fraction of that, I think that would be such a boon for Sammamish. And as far as community engagement, once we have the strategic plan in place, is there any thought to having like a more approachable way for a community member with an idea of like an art project or a program or something to engage with the city? You know, is it?
Yes. I think you want to encourage that, but on the other hand, if you're kind of organizing yourself, you have a work plan for the year and you have the criteria for choosing that. So not that you want to discourage somebody coming in and saying, I've got this idea, but the answer then can be, that's great. Here's how you fill out your proposals. And we'll look at that in our next work plan. But you know, people come in and they've got lots of ideas, and it can just be very haphazard unless you kind of organize yourself like you would with any group or commission to say yes and no. But also to have some resources available. You know, it's like, wow, maybe the library would be a good place to do that, or, you know, to be a partner.
Thank you.
Council, other questions? If not, I have a couple more. So capacity building, could you explain to me what you meant by capacity building? Because I'm assuming that that's what you meant, almost like in the last answer you gave.
Yeah, there's not just one way to do it, but I think finding your artists, finding your creative people, seeing what gets them excited.
Okay, that's a different capacity building than what I'm thinking of, because I'm thinking of capacity building in order to support, like the agency that supports that effort, because you need capacity to do that. Everything that's been described is going to take effort and man hours. So I'm doing the math in my head as far as just how the lift there, which leads me to a second question, which has to do with how excited is the Arts Commission about this? Because in the past, we've had arts commissioners that have just about thrown up their hands in despair and run screaming from the room because they just felt like they weren't heard, nobody was paying attention to them, and so on.
Yeah, we've really enjoyed the meetings that we've had with the Arts Commission. We worked with them this fall. They had some money that they needed to spend by the end of the year, and so we tried our draft criteria on that and said, you guys bring your thoughts. What is it that you're excited about doing? And I think there were some lessons learned there. The criteria, I think, worked. There were some classes, there were some events, a lot of ideas, and they worked really well together to decide the ones that they wanted to put forward. There was like a snowstorm and some other things that kind of got in the way of the winter activities. But I was really excited by the way that they were working together, that there was a logic to the discussion. I think one of the lessons learned is you got to do this in advance or you can't get word out, especially if it's the holiday season. So, you know, I think it was really helpful to kind of beta test some of the things that we were working on in the plan. So I think there were some good lessons learned there. I think you've got a good group. So I think getting them organized is going to be really helpful. Having a plan to put forward rather than just be all over the place. You know, an Arts Commission is different than being on the Planning Commission. You know what you're supposed to do. There's RCWs and deadlines and, you know, state laws passing every week. The Arts Commission is different. It attracts a different kind of person. And, you know, we love them. We love that creativity. But it also needs some focus on what you should be doing as a city, an arm of the city. So I feel like you've got a good group, a really good group, and they have some energy. And if they can get coalesced around some good practices, I think it's going to go much, much better.
Okay, that's very encouraging. Thank you very much.
Oh, on the resources, let me just say that we are silent to that issue. That's not our call. It's your call. Our job is to get them organized and directed so that they're doing what the city wants to do. There's way more things to do than, you know, any cities with big budgets. It's still, you know, anybody with a lick of imagination, there's more to do than you have resources. So that's where the decision making and the criteria come in. But I think if you can get some proof of, you know, a proof of those efforts and successes, that you can continue to walk forward in your ambitions.
Very helpful. Thank you very much for the update, and I look forward to the next one.
Thank you, Council.
So if we are done with this topic, then we can move to public comment. Is there anybody in the room that's prepared to give public comment? Nope. Anybody online?
We have one pre-registered caller. Those who have pre-registered prior to 5 p.m., please raise your hand if you wish to give comment. Looks like we do not have any public comment this evening.
I see. Well then, are there council reports? And city manager, perhaps you could stick us off?
Yeah, sure, Mayor. I was hoping you wouldn't start with me. I actually don't have anything to report this evening for this week. We've got a relatively speaking quiet week this week. But I know. But next week we'll be quite busy, so we are in process of getting ready for all that stuff. So.
Okay, anyone else then? Looks like Councilmember Treen.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So the ETP meeting on Friday will be in person, also through Teams on Friday at from 8 to 9:30, and the ETP is going to have the ETP agreement, and operation procedures will be up for a vote at this meeting. At this point, your lead and alternate, or the two people on the committee, we want to vote in favor of it, and it seems like if we weren't to do that, it would be weird for us not to do that. So we'd like to get the approval of the council to make the vote in favor of the operating procedures of the ETP. So looking just for a thumbs up from
Looks
the council.
like head nods.
Sid,
Looks like you're in good shape.
yeah. So.
Anything else? Okay. Councilmember Gupta.
I have a PIC meeting tomorrow. I sent an email at 4 p.m. today. Sorry for the late notice, but there were some issues on SCA's end, and then I got a follow-up email about 10 minutes before I sent that one. So we are going to be talking about the growth target reconciliation process. PIC may choose to take some action to inform the GMPC's caucus. So the agenda and details are in the email. Additionally, there's the King County Parks Levy. Again, PIC may choose to take action to take a position. Details in there's quite a bit of information, so I will refer you to the email. Please let me know if you have any questions. And we will also be getting a legislative update.
Deputy Mayor Lamb.
I have a solid waste committee meeting on Friday, and I'll be sending out the agenda.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, we have an EFR meeting, ESA Fire and Rescue meeting on board meeting on Thursday. There's a lot happening in EFR this year, as the mayor reported previously. The chief will be retiring at the end of the year, so that's obviously top of mind and top of the priority list. But in addition, last year when we went through the budgeting process, we took notes of a lot of policy changes that we wanted to, or policies that we wanted to review and potentially change. So for example, part of the reason why we had to take such a big increase in the budget was because in prior years, the board had voted not to take small incremental increases in fees from the participating jurisdictions and instead take money out of fund balances for things like equipment and our capital improvements. And so we got to a critical point where we couldn't kick that can down the road anymore. We needed to buy some new fire trucks because they were going to hit end of life. So we want to revisit some of those policies and put some guardrails around that. Certainly wouldn't mean that the board couldn't make those decisions because the board is empowered to do so, but to make sure that we put something in place that requires certain information to come forward or things like that. So there's an ad hoc committee that we're going to put together to start exploring many of those policy decisions or policies so that we can put those guardrails in place. And I know it sounds crazy, but I'm kind of excited to address those things. So if you're interested, take a look at the agenda.
And then I have an EMAC meeting, so emergency management, and I'm being joined by Mark and Audrey, who are going to do a great job of a joint presentation with Eastside Fire and Rescue to the full EMAC Council, which is, it's really large. It's like 100 people will probably be there for that. So they've done a great job coordinating, and I'm really excited about what they did.
Mayor, for the anyone following along, EMAC stands for?
Emergency Management Operations Center.
Advisory Committee.
Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
Yeah. We meet in the mock. So it actually involves hospitals, it involves fire, police, all across the King County, actually. So any kind of emergency services personnel will be involved, and they're really looking forward to this presentation. So with that, I believe we can leave for the evening. So everyone have a good early evening.